Here we go.
One more time. Everybody's feeling fine.
I was hoping you were going to go with it, but then you took my line. You don't get to have all the lines.
I get to have all of the lines.
No, you get part of the line, and then I continue the line.
If you say so.
How was your evening?
It was good. I went and got some money.
I love it. Yeah. So you can buy me pretty things.
No. I had some...
I buy you pretty things.
I buy you pretty things when I can afford it.
Okay.
I had some green chili cheese fries.
Delicious. That's better than the dried up chicken nuggets I had.
Yeah, that food truck that's at the bar has green chili cheese fries and stuff like that, and they're waffle fries and
nice.
So I decided that I wanted to try some of those while I was there, and they were delicious.
Yeah, definitely better than what we had. Bear, of course, wanted French fries because that's all he eats. And I was just going to go to the regular McDonald's, but the regular McDonald's Coke machines are broken again. I don't know why, after they remodeled the building, why their Coke machines still don't work. And so I went to the new McDonald's, and the new McDonald's doesn't know how to operate.
No.
And so the chicken nuggets were like gross. I ate them because I paid for them and I was hungry, but they were gross.
You should have just fed them to the dogs and had a big taco.
Oh, I forgot that stuff was in there. I would have. I wouldn't have even ordered it to begin with if I had remembered that stuff was in there.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to have for dinner originally, but like I said, I was sitting there looking at the menu and decided that I wanted to try those waffle fries, and then... Yeah.
No, I was sitting at work thinking, what am I going to eat for dinner? There's nothing at the house.
There are things at the house.
It's just so rare.
There are taco stuff, and there is that sandwich stuff that I bought.
See, I forgot about all those things. That's why I can't have groceries in the house, because I forget that there's groceries in the house.
Did you ever eat that watermelon?
No. I ate a little bit of it when I was trying to feed it to the lizard, which she told me, you're hilarious. Get that out of my face.
I figured you bought it for yourself because the lizard doesn't care for fruit.
No, I thought I'd try just because, I don't know. She doesn't care for anything.
No.
Except worms.
Worms. Just
big, juicy worms.
Juicy, juicy worms. Let's see. What else? I thought there was something else.
I have no idea. Your cat's being annoying, though. Is that your cat?
I think it's Taco.
Oh.
My cat is in my bedroom.
So it's Bear's cat being annoying. Anything else?
I thought I had something, but no. We were just there to pay me and to celebrate the...
Paying of you?
The paying of me. Yes. That's what the celebrating was for. And, you know, because I drew some pictures for a book.
Well... As you should. As a drawer.
Yes.
You should do things that make you money. There's a demon in the other room. Well, I have our very first listener tale.
You have a listener tale?
Adjacent.
The listener tale adjacent.
Amber texted me the other day.
Okay.
So, since they have moved into their new house, they've had some ghostly activity like for the last few years, every once in a while something pops up. But she texted me the other day, and none of the ghosty stuff has been scary from anything that she's ever said, but the text I got from her the other day said, "Our household ghost stopped locking my office door, but she hid Nathaniel's wedding ring for several days and then left it on the chair he had been sitting in, right in the middle of the seat when he went back to it 2 minutes later." And then I got another message a few minutes later that said, "Just now, I heard the chair making a sound like someone sat in it, but it was empty and Mortos was just staring at it."
Gotta love the cats and their spooks.
Yeah. And a ghost that steals your stuff and then puts it in weird places. Yeah. Which you hear that, that happening a lot with ghosty stories.
Oh, I guess there's that, and then there's poltergeists that stack your furniture and things like that. And...
That would be weird. Or stack your canned goods. I would like to come into like a Weasley house-ish tower.
Yes.
Of like kitchen things.
Goods.
Yeah. I would love that.
Yes.
I don't know if I would love that, but I would love it. Like, it would freak me out.
I would barf and cry,
but also love it. So anyway, I asked her if I could share that, and she said yes.
Yes.
So, next, I would like to apologize for my shoddy reporting last week.
You shoddily reported something last week?
I sure did. So last week, if you are new here, we covered the exorcism of Rolando, Robbie Mannheim, Ronald Hunkeler. Was that his last name?
I don't remember what his last name was.
Which was the inspiration for The Exorcist. But I realized the other day that I did not consult the most important source for the entire story, which was the Ghost Bros.
Yes.
So I apologize for that. It won't happen again. Even though it's literally happening again right now, because I forgot to go back and rewatch the episode they did for the story I'm doing right now.
Good job.
Yeah, so, tonight we're going to talk about the Villisca Axe murders.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming you know about, because I think everybody knows this story.
Most people have heard of this.
So, I'm mostly covering the crime part, not the ghost part, so maybe it's okay that I didn't watch the Ghost Bros.
Maybe.
So this crime took place in Villisca, Iowa during the night between June 9th and 10th in 1912.
Okay.
So, like, just a hot minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
So...
like the other day, basically.
Yeah, I know. Alright, setting the scene. The evening of June 9th, 1912, the 6 members of the Moore family went to the Children's Day program at the local Presbyterian church. The family consisted of parents Josiah B. Moore, who was 43, and Sarah Moore, who was 39, and their 4 children. Herman was 11, Mary, and I guess her name was Mary Catherine. Some sources have her listed as Mary, but the actual Villisca Axe Murder House website calls her Catherine. So I guess I'm going to stick with Catherine. She was 10, Arthur was 7, and Paul was 5. So Sarah had coordinated this event for the church, and I thought I had read that it was like a yearly event, but then another thing I read said that it was like an event for like their newly constructed church. So I guess that doesn't mean that it wasn't a yearly event. It could just be taking place in like their new building or whatever. But so it was an evening program. It started at 7 o'clock. It was over at about 9:30, and Catherine invited her friends Ina and Lena Stillinger to spend the night. Ina was either 8 or 9, depending on the source, and Lena was 12. And if I'm understanding the timeline correctly, Catherine had actually asked her friends to sleep over before they went to the church. So some sources said that Josiah called the Stillinger house around 6 p.m. to ask permission. He spoke with the girl's older sister because the parents weren't around, and the sister said it was okay.
Okay.
So possibly the Stillinger girls walked over to the church with the Moore family, but for sure they walked back to the house with them after the program was over.
Okay.
And the church was like 5-minute walk away from the house. So it was just right there. And then like after the obligatory visiting that takes place after a service at church, the Moores and the Stillingers arrived back at the house between like 9:45, 10 o'clock. So it's assumed that they went to bed shortly after arriving back at the house because, you know, it's 1912. So you went to bed when the sun went down.
Yes.
And it was June.
Not a whole lot to do at 10:45 at night.
Right. And as far as I could tell, there was not electricity in the house. So they're really, I mean, light candles. I don't know.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of options.
No. So the Moore family had put a twin bed downstairs in the sewing room for Catherine because she was the only girl. And so since she had 4 brothers, I guess they slept in the bedroom upstairs and Catherine slept in the room downstairs. Okay. But for this night, because it was just a twin-size bed, the Stillinger sisters slept in that bed downstairs and Catherine slept upstairs with her brothers. The next morning, so now we're June 10th, the next door neighbor, Mary Peckham, was up and at him at 5 a.m., as farm people do.
I tried that yesterday, and
Now you're dead.
Now I'm possibly dead.
Not the same dead, though.
No.
So, she went outside to hang out her laundry and tend to her chores, as farm people do. And a couple of hours later, she realized that the Moores weren't up and at 'em yet, which is odd because they live on a farm and they have chores, as farm people do. And the chickens and the horses were still pinned up and the curtains were still drawn in the house. And she said there was like an odd stillness to the house. And with 4 kids and animals, usually at this time of day, there's like a hustle bustle going on, getting kids ready for school, tending to the animals. Right. Things people do in the morning.
Busy morning stuff.
I don't know what those things are because I don't get up until the actual last minute because mornings are for suckers and farm people.
Yes, and we're not farm people.
We're not farm people. So I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway. Oh, the school thing. I was, like, confused because, like, one thing was, like, you know, she was confused that they weren't getting the kids ready for school, but it was June 12th. And so I don't know how school worked in 1912.
I was going to say, this is also 1912, so...
Was there summer vacation? Also, I know lots of places go to school longer into June and then start in September, but also it was 1912. I don't know. I don't know if they were going to school that morning or not, but...
I don't know what was happening in 1912.
But it was a Monday morning, and she was concerned.
Were the dinosaurs around in 1912? It was so long ago.
Yes. Yep, they were, actually. So, she goes over, she knocks on both the front and the back doors, and no one answers. She tries to look through the windows, but the curtains are all drawn. And so, first she goes and she lets the chickens out and feeds them. And maybe the other animals too, because she's being a helpful neighbor.
Yeah.
And she calls over to Josiah's brother's house. I wrote that really funky, so ignore me.
We'll just go with that.
Josiah has a brother named Ross.
Yes.
And she called his house.
Okay.
And his wife answered the phone, and he wasn't around. Like 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know where he's at.
Where could he be at 7 o'clock in the morning? Where could anyone be at 7 o'clock in the morning?
I'm barely out of bed at that point. Sometimes not even. So anyway, so she asks the wife, is the family sick? Have they gone somewhere in the middle of the night? Like a family member got sick and they left, right. Or, you know, like what's going on? And I guess the wife says she doesn't know. And so then Mary Peckham, the neighbor, calls Josiah's store and I guess talks to one of his employees, and the employee's like, no, he's not here. I haven't heard from him this morning either. Yeah. She eventually gets in touch with Ross, the brother. He comes over to the house. He does the same thing, knocks on both of the doors, hollers for the family, and then finally lets himself in with a key. So he walked into the downstairs, he walks in the house, and, like, nothing looks weird, and he opens the downstairs bedroom door, and he sees a sheet pulled up over someone with, like, an arm hanging out from underneath it, and, like, then, like, he gets hit with the smell of blood.
Uh-oh.
And so he bolts out of the house, and he tells Mary Peckham,
don't go in there.
Don't go in there, but run back home and call Hank Horton, who was the town's, I don't know if he was a sheriff. He was kind of listed as like the peace officer.
Yeah.
Because it's Mayberry. Mm-hmm. And so...
Except Eddie Taylor was a sheriff.
Yes, he was. But, you know, like, same kind of setting, I imagine.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. It's kind of, you know... So Hank gets there, and, like, Andy didn't have to deal with anything but the town drunk. And maybe somebody speeding down the highway.
And the town drunk kind of dealt with himself.
Yeah, he would just go in and shut himself in.
Shut the door and go to bed.
Yeah. And Hank here, he didn't even have to deal with the town drunk because it was a dry town.
Yeah.
So there's not even drunks. So he's definitely not equipped for this.
No.
What he's about to walk into.
He is about to discover.
So he gets there pretty quickly. He walks through the house. He comes back out and he tells Ross, there's someone dead in every bed. And so, wildly, because, you know, back then there was like an operator switchboard kind of situation going on. The central telephone center place issues an all-call alert at 8:40 a.m. that goes out to every house in the area telling them about the murders. Mm-hmm. So, like, everybody in town, which I think is how the Stillinger parents find out that their children are dead.
Right.
Which is horrible.
Which is a terrible way to find out your children are dead.
So, without television or TikTok to distract these people, like 100 people show up at the house within minutes of this phone call going out. And they just trample through the crime scene.
Yeah.
They touch the bodies. They handle the murder weapon, which was an axe, by the way, if you didn't catch on to the name of the story.
You weren't really sure what axe murder meant?
It was an axe. Someone even took a piece of Josiah's skull.
Well, I was going to say, this reminds me of, I don't know how, you read the book, though, about, We Have Always Lived in the Castle.
I did read that book, and
I made you watch the movie twice.
Have no recollection of this at all.
See, this is not my fault. This is not my fault that you didn't remember watching the movie the first time, because now you don't remember watching it a second time or reading the book.
I remember reading the book. I don't remember the plot. I don't remember. I remember the cover of the book.
So at the end, spoiler alert, the town kind of comes to mob these girls. And so they're, like, breaking stuff and, like, coming in and stealing furniture and, like...
I do remember that now. Is it, what's his face? Is he at that movie?
Sebastian Stan?
Nope, that wasn't who I was thinking
Well, that's who's in that movie.
Yeah, you're right. Now that you said that, I remember that. I was picturing, Maggie Gyllenhaal's husband.
Oh, yeah, he's not in that movie.
What is his name?
Peter Skarsgård.
Is he a Skarsgård?
Sarsgaard? I think Sarsgaard is the family and Skarsgård is this guy.
Yeah, possibly. Okay, yeah. That's who I was picturing, but you're right, it is the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, because he, like, manipulates the older sister.
Yeah. Or, oh my gosh. So, like, before we started watching, or before he was the Winter Soldier, I knew him from Gossip Girl.
And I knew him from Once Upon a Time.
Oh, that's right. But, so I always remembered him by his Gossip Girl name, but now it's been so long that I can only think of him as the Winter Soldier, and I can't remember his Gossip Girl name.
Yeah.
But it's like some, like, rich white man name.
Some Chet kind of name.
Yeah, it's not Chet, though, and hopefully nobody will ever be named Chet again after Hanks.
Yes.
Okay.
But,
he gives all Chets a bad name.
But, yeah, so, no. Sebastian Stan is in that movie.
Yes.
But anyway, that reminds me of that part of the story where the people are, like, mobbing their house.
Yeah. So...
It's like the whole town.
Yeah. Which I think in 1912, 100 people probably was the whole town of Villisca. So they come in, trample through everything, touch bodies, murder weapons, take pieces of this man's skull.
Right.
And maybe several someones, but I know definitely one someone took it because later on he was kind of accused of being the murderer. And he also, and he put it on display. I can't remember who it was. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but he had, I don't know if he like had a store in town or something, but like it still had like hair and skin on it. Disgusting. And like that had to have brought this guy like the worst juju.
Right.
Not just bad juju, but like the worst juju.
Right.
Because gross.
Yeah, that's pretty disgusting.
So by the time the county coroner, Dr. Lindquist, arrives at like 9 a.m., the scene was beyond tampered with. And he even urged Hank to bring in the National Guard to get a handle on the security in the place because it was chaos. And so by 10:30 a.m., the National Guard had showed up and secured the perimeter. And based on the forensics that were available in 1912, which was not much.
Right. I can't imagine.
It was determined that the family and the Stillinger girls were all killed between midnight and 2 a.m. Also, based on the evidence, it appeared that the crime took place as follows. So, as I said before, the Moore family got home between like 9:45 and 10 o'clock, probably went to bed. Sometime around after midnight, a bad guy wielding Josiah's axe walks straight upstairs to the bedroom that Josiah and Sarah share. So the axe came from the house.
Yeah.
It was either in the barn or like the coal shed or something, but it was on the property. And they only know that because I guess it had some weird like nick in the blade that the brother was able to identify and be like, yeah, this is his axe. So Josiah seems
Good
to
job
have...
that you paid that much attention to your brother's axe.
Right? Maybe he's the murderer.
Right. Like, why do you know that there's a chip in your brother's axe blade?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a chip in your axe blade.
Exactly. I don't know if there's a chip in my axe blade. So, I guess good on ya.
Yeah.
I guess unless his brother made a big deal out of it and was like, my axe blade chipped.
Stupid axe.
And they're just like examining it together and patting it like a car and...
Yeah, like rubbing their finger over it. Yeah. Doing man things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so unless there was something about it that he specifically pointed out the chip, I can't imagine why his brother would
Possibly
know that.
when I'm like, look, I chipped my fingernail
Look
right there.
Look, right there.
And see, and like it keeps catching on everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Girl stuff.
Yeah. Keep rubbing your thumb up against it.
Trying to like dull it down so it doesn't keep hanging on your clothes.
Yeah. So, something like that.
Perhaps. I'd probably know faster if you had a chip in your nail than if you had a chip in your axe.
Yeah.
Because this would just bother you, like, consistently.
And I'd be like, do you have your clippers? Because...
Yeah. Okay, anyway. So, Josiah seems to have been...
Back to the axe murder.
Right. Josiah seems to have been the first person who was attacked. He was hit with the blunt end of the axe. Then the bad guy turns and he attacks Sarah. And according to a last-minute piece of information that I gathered from a grand jury testimony on the case, Sarah was the only member of the family hit with the blade of the axe.
He must have done some real bludgeoning to
kill
the entire family with the axe handle.
Right? Well,
not or is it the back
handle,
of the
back of the axe.
But when you were saying blunt end, it was making me think of like the handle.
No, the back like bunker part. Yeah. So
okay.
I had been under the impression like forever that Josiah was the only one who had been hit with the blade, but it was actually Sarah was the only one who had been hit with the blade. And so either way, I would assume this is probably a way to get rid of the biggest threats in the house first.
Well, right. You would start with the husband,
the dad,
because he's going to be the one to try and stop you and protect the family. And...
Right. So, also, how did the bad guy know where they slept?
Exactly.
Because if this is a creaky old farmhouse, wouldn't they have heard him walking around checking rooms?
They're really good sleepers.
They're just like me.
Yeah.
I just sleep through the axe murder.
Champion sleepers.
Yeah. If there was a category in the Olympics for sleeping, I would win the gold medal.
Yes.
So, people are like, how did he know where to go first if he wasn't just wandering around this house in the middle of the night looking for something? So after killing the parents, he walks to the other bedroom and he kills all 4 of the Moore children, again with the blunt end of the axe. The bunker part.
Yeah, the bunker part.
Not the handle part.
I forgot how axes were constructed for a moment.
They're not axes. That's not a battle axe.
Yes, where there's sharpie things on both ends.
Yeah. So this all had to have happened super fast because it doesn't appear that anybody woke up or tried to fight or run. Then he goes downstairs and goes to the room where the 2 Stillinger girls are sleeping, and the reports state that Lena was the last person to have been killed. And so nobody upstairs, and even Ina doesn't seem to have woken up during this entire thing. But Lena seems to have been the exception. So she was
unfortunately
possibly sexually assaulted because she was found kind of pulled down and askew over the bed and her underwear had been removed.
Yeah.
There are reports that say that, like, it just looked like she had been assaulted, but that there was no evidence to show that she had been. The official website for the house said that Ida also seemed to have been repositioned after death, that she was found on her stomach with her, like, bottom up in the air, but I didn't see that anywhere else, so I don't know. And so then, like, this couldn't possibly get any worse, right? But then it does. So after he kills all of these people, he goes back upstairs and starts, like, wailing on them with the axe. With the blunt end of the axe, mind you, because he didn't use the sharp side. Josiah was hit with the axe an estimated 30 times, and it's even reported that his eyes were just completely destroyed.
Delicious.
He left everyone's faces basically unidentifiable. There were even gouges in the ceiling from his back swings. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. And so then the reason why they're sure that he went back to attack them after the initial attacks, well, I guess there's a couple of reasons. One I wrote down, another one I just thought to say. So the first is that I guess there were shoes next to the bed.
Okay.
And so after he initially hit them with the axe, that, like, the way I guess they were laying, like, the blood was, like, soaked into the covers and then it was dripping down into the shoes.
Okay.
But then they found one of those shoes, like, knocked over where the blood had spilled out of the shoe. But then there was more blood over the shoe. Like, continued to bleed after that. Yeah. So it had been enough time that the shoe had filled up before it had been knocked over and then bled on again. The other reason is that since nobody seems to have woken up, and this probably would have been a pretty noisy crime, it's just surmised that he kind of, like, initially just, like, hit them.
Just whack, whack.
And then went back and did the rest of it because it didn't wake anybody else up. So, then... And I believe this also happened after the crime because, again, creaky floors. He walks around the house covering all of the mirrors with pieces of clothing and blankets and stuff.
Cool.
He covers the windows that don't have blinds. He covers all of the people with, like, either the bed covers or jackets or dresses, whatever he could find in dressers. He covers them all.
This all sounds like a crime of opportunity to an extent.
Yeah.
Like the methods he used.
Right, because it's like he doesn't bring anything with him.
Yeah.
Which, we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But yeah, but, like, also, you know, I know sometimes they say that covering, like, faces or whatever sometimes is like that snap feeling of remorse or whatever for whatever you did. Some people speculate that he covered the mirrors because he couldn't, like, stand to look at himself after he did that thing. But then there's also, like, the, like, paranormal explanation that people would cover mirrors whenever somebody would die, like, during wakes and stuff, because if you looked in the mirror, then, like, you would be the next one to die, or, you know, just various superstitions that have gone on throughout the years. Who knows? He also maybe tried to wipe off the axe, and, like, before he left it leaning in the bedroom where the Sillinger girls had been sleeping, they found a bowl of water, like a basin of water, where he had cleaned his hands. He possibly ate some beans and bread.
Well, you work up a big hunger when you're axe murdering people.
And then he locked up and left the house around 5 a.m. And I'm not sure how they came to the conclusion that it was 5 a.m., but there it is. He was out of there. So, a couple of ideas about how the killer knew where to go in the house. So, the first is when police were searching around the property, they found hay with an indention in it as if someone had been laying or sitting on it in the barn. Mm-hmm. And right around the hay was a knot hole in the wall of the barn that had like a perfect view of the house. So it was like somebody had been sitting there watching.
Right.
And so it's possible that this guy had been like hiding out in the barn, watching the family, casing the joint, looking for routines, whatever bad guys do. The second is that there were a couple of smoked cigarettes found in the attic. And so the theory there is that the bad guy watched the family leave for church, broke into the house, waited in the attic for the family to fall asleep. The official tour of the house, though, I guess says that the cigarettes weren't actually found in the attic. And so, or that there weren't cigarettes found in the attic. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Let's see. A newspaper article from June 15th, 1921 had a quote from a friend of Josiah Moore's sister stating, "Had Mr. Moore or Mrs. Moore looked into a closet off the room where the Sillinger girls slept, they would have seen the murderer and probably have prevented the crime. Several bags of cotton batting found in the closet showed marks of a man having sat or stood upon them." So, who knows if that was true or if it was just, like, sensationalized, like, I need to tell a story to the newspaper or whatever. A couple of other things that were weird. There was a gas lamp, so, you know, like, the little lanterns with the glass chimneys. They found one of those where the glass chimney had been removed. And so what that would have done was it would have allowed him to use the light from the flame without it being bright. Like, it would have dimmed the light coming off of it. It's also... Nope, I already said that. So there was a piece of pocket watch chain found in the house that didn't seem to belong to anyone in the house. And I also read and heard on some podcasts a couple of sources saying that there were slabs of uncooked bacon.
Okay, that's
out.
Interesting.
There was, I want to say it was like, one said that it was like a 4-pound slab of bacon. There was another one that said it was left like in the bedroom where the Stillinger girls were next to the axe.
That would be strange.
Very strange. I don't know. I don't know why or how.
Don't know what the bacon means.
I don't know. Maybe he wanted to cook it and then he ran out of time.
Possibly.
Yeah. So, this next line I wrote, I'm just going to throw this in here because I really don't know where else to put it.
Okay.
There was another article from Iowa on August 21st, 1912 with the headline, "Slayer's image in eye. Photograph of Iowa murderer is obtained from retina of a girl victim." And, like, the article is, like, this long. But it was, like, that they had, in Lena's eye, because she was presumably the only one who, like, was awake when this happened, that they were able to capture the killer's image from her retina.
Didn't they do something like that in Wild Wild West? Someone who was decapitated and they, like, turned his head into, like, a projector and were able to, like, project, like, the last thing he saw.
It's been probably 25 or 30 years since I've seen that movie.
I've seen it more recently. Not, like, recently, but I've seen it more recently.
Yeah. Perhaps. It sounds like something weird. And that movie's kind of weird.
Because Kevin Kline, or whatever his name is like a scientist.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they did that with some guy's head.
Is he like a spider guy?
He's not.
Or like his wheelchair? Or like...
Well, he's not the scientist. He's the one that's Jim West's partner that's a scientist.
Oh. I'm telling you.
Loveless is the bad guy, and that's...
And he's a spider guy?
Kenneth Branagh. And he has a big, like...
Spider chair
thing.
Okay. It's the only part of the movie I remember. It's a spider chair. Yeah. And the song. Yes. Jim West. Desperado. Rough Rider.
You don't want nada.
None of this. Okay, we're going to stop doing that. Okay.
Anyway, so that's what that reminds me of.
Possibly, I don't know. So, motive. What would drive someone to kill an entire family?
Hold on. But
no.
I would assume that if that were possible, we would be using this technology to this day.
Right, and it wouldn't have just, like, died out in 1912.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we would be using people's heads as projectors.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, I feel like if that were real,
yeah,
there would be a lot of advances in head projectors.
Gross. Farron, someone died. Shh. Okay.
We don't laugh at dead people.
No. Alright, so burglary doesn't seem to be the motive.
Okay.
Because Josiah's wallet full of cash was left behind and nothing else seemed to have been taken. So, we're going to talk about some suspects and see if motive becomes clear. But also keep in mind that this is an unsolved case, so won't ever actually know what the motive was.
No.
So, the first major suspect was the Reverend George Kelly. He was an English traveling minister who was in town that night to teach at the Children's Day program, and he also seemed to have skipped town catching the 5 a.m. train. So, in addition to being a traveling minister, Reverend Kelly was also a peeping Tom.
Seems like a fun guy.
Yeah. At one point, had tried to hire a secretary or something and wrote her a letter saying sometimes she'd need to do her work naked.
I mean, don't we all? Apparently.
He was also pretty mentally ill. He was overheard on the train saying that he had murdered the family. There were some reports saying that he had quoted the Bible, saying something like, something about slaying. I lost it. I didn't write it down. Like slaying and slaying utterly, or I don't know. I'm no Bible expert. No, scholar's a better word. So he wasn't arrested for the Villisca murders until 1917, and he initially admitted to committing the murders, but then later recanted and said his confession had been beaten out of him by police. And he was acquitted of the murders not once, but twice. And then the second major suspect, and he's still kind of the prime suspect today, is a man named Frank Jones.
Okay.
So Frank was an Iowa state senator. I keep wanting to say Ohio. An Iowa state senator, and had been Josiah Moore's boss before Josiah struck out on his own. Frank Jones owned something called an implement store.
Okay.
Do you know what an implement store is?
It's where you buy your implements.
What kind of implements?
The ones that you need.
Yes. Well, a bit of Googling taught me that in 1912, and I don't know if it still is, but in 1912, an implement store sells... Is it a demon?
I don't know what that noise is.
I think it's probably bug.
Okay, an implement store.
Yes. Sells farming equipment and supplies. So, like plows and harvesters and stuff.
Farm implements.
Yes. The things that you need.
The things that you need.
If you're
to farm.
You know, what farm people do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when Josiah decided to go into business for himself, he took the John Deere account. And even in 1912, John Deere was a big deal.
I can imagine, because farming was a big deal, but, okay.
So this left some pretty serious bad blood between the two men. Like, listen, it was so serious that when they were both walking down the street, one of them would cross the street.
That's pretty serious.
Serious. So, another little bit of scandal here was that there was also a pretty prevalent rumor going around that Josiah was having a torrid affair with Frank Jones's daughter-in-law. And I don't think that's ever been proven, but it's another theory. Mm-hmm. But are either of those things motive enough to kill not only Josiah, but his entire family and
the neighbors?
And like in such a brutal way. Mm-hmm. So I say no. No. But I'm also not a murderer.
Exactly.
There was also a theory posed that Jones hired a man named William Mansfield to kill Josiah. William's nickname was Insane Blackie.
Well.
So, Yikes. He is also believed to have killed his own family via axe. So I guess it's a possibility.
Yeah, it seems... I mean, if that's true, then it seems like that's something that he...
But, listen, apparently axe murdering was prevalent in the 1910s-ish. Because Henry Lee Moore, no relation to Josiah's family, had been convicted of murdering his mother and grandmother with an axe. So he was also looked at as a suspect. But he had a pretty clear motive for killing his family. He had wanted to inherit his mother's house.
Yes.
So that was the best way to inherit it.
The best way to inherit it is just to whack her with an axe.
Yes. Like Lizzie. So, in a 2017 book entitled The Man from the Train by Bill James and his daughter Rachel McCarthy, they put forth a pretty strong argument that the Villisca murders were done by a serial killer who was active for over a decade and was responsible for at least 59 murders and 14 separate incidents. The victims all lived near railroad tracks.
Okay.
So he could be traveling around via rail. They were all attacked while they were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
They were all killed with the blunt side of the axe and were hit pretty exclusively in the head and face. The bunker part, not the handle part. The axes were always either the victim's axe or was in plain sight of the victim's house and was also left behind in plain sight. I'm sorry that I'm boring you.
I'm so tired.
The victims were always covered with blankets, clothes, garments found in the house. The windows were covered and locked from the inside. The killer locked the house before he left. I don't know about in all of the cases, but there were some instances where a basin of water was found where the killer cleaned up. And there also seemed to be, not in every case, but often enough, that there was one young girl who had been targeted for sexual assault, possibly.
Yeah.
So, as far as suspects go, this seems like a pretty plausible idea.
If all of that is true, then...
Mm-hmm. I mean, they still don't know who it is, as far as I could tell, but
I just mean, if all of that is true, it seems like that's pretty likely.
Yeah, and I wonder if that book is where Criminal Minds got the idea for that one episode where the guy is going around on the train and killing the people in the houses. But who knows? I think... Was the Axeman of New Orleans or something? Did he also get around on train? There was some other one that did that.
Oh, I don't remember.
But anyway, so as for the house, it changed hands about 13 times in like 90 years. In 1994, it was purchased by Rick and Vicky Sprague. Sprague. I like Sprague.
Yeah. Spragway.
Yes. They're gonna send us a message on social media. No. Don't ever say our name again.
Keep our name out of your mouth.
Oh no, don't hit me like Will Smith.
And all variations of it.
So, based on pictures and accounts of the home, they restored it to what it would have looked like in 1912. They even went as far as to remove all of the electricity and plumbing that had been installed over the years. These days, you can tour the house, even renting ghost hunting equipment. You can stay overnight. The website says that there's a bathroom next door, as well as a power bank, so you can charge your devices. Maybe over the next week, I'll see if I can compile some of the ghosty stuff and do a whole episode just on that.
Yeah.
Definitely not forgetting to see what Zach and Co. experienced on their visit.
Zach and the bros got up to.
Yeah, and poor Aaron almost being axe murdered himself by his wife.
I know.
But anyway, that's the story of the Villisca Axe murders.
Did you hear about one of the guys from Weezer's wife?
Yes! That is a wild story.
Yeah, it is.
Because at first, I thought she was one of the people that the cops were chasing.
Right. When I first heard about it, I thought that too. And then I realized that she went after the cops with a gun.
But what I think then I read was that she had her gun because the people that the cops were chasing were trying to break into her house or something. Mm. And then she went outside with her gun and then had this altercation with the police.
I don't know. I heard a clip of her talking on something, and the way that she was talking, it seemed like she could have gone after the cops with her gun.
See, the problem here with me, and you as well, is that we only read the headlines of things.
This just happened to be like a reel or something. Uh-huh. And so I saw it, but...
Yeah. So, yeah, that was pretty wild because it was... we learned that, like, right after we had heard about Aaron's wife plotting to kill him. Yes. And it was just like, what's happening?
I know. What's with all these celebrities' wives?
Is Aaron a celebrity?
Do you know who he is?
It's true. That's true, he is. I mean...
Does most of the world know who he is?
Perhaps.
Does a good percentage of humans know who he is?
Perhaps.
So...
Yeah.
I would say that in their own right, they are celebrities.
Well, Zak, for sure. I mean, he makes it so.
But if you know who Zak Bagans is, then you also know who Aaron is.
That's true. He's the one who always gets locked in the scary rooms. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Anyway. There's a story.
That was a story. That was kind of a grody story.
I wrote that in just this afternoon.
Don't tell people.
It is impressive. But I'm impressing people.
I mean, it takes me 8 bajillion years to come up with a story.
Fantastic skills.
Yes. I
had actually started, like, listening and reading things yesterday. Uh-huh. I just wrote it today.
That's still a very short amount of time.
Hey, I think I covered a lot of information.
I guess so.
So, there's that.
There's that. Anything else?
No.
Anything special happen in your day?
No.
Me either.
I ate some pizza.
Had some pizza.
Had some T2O.
Had some T2O. Had some pizza. Had some delicious fries.
I watched a 16-year-old boy drink 51 ounces of T2O in like 2.3 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I just thought I was going to get a stomach ache.
Yeah. But other than that, no. I was going to say next week at this time. Not next week at this time, but next week, closer to this time, we're going to go watch, and That's Why We Drink.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
So, next week and a few days.
Yeah. So that'll be cool. And that is all I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's all I have to say today, too.
All right. Well, you can find us on social media at Twisted and Mysterious, or email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com.
We would like it if you did. We tell you every week, we want to know what you want to hear, and we want to know what creepy things have happened to you.
That's right. And I lost my words, so
all right.
They just fell right out of my face.
Just fell right out.
Except not out of my mouth. They just fell out of my face. And so they didn't come out as words.
So a special shout out to the Spragways.
Yes.
The Spragways. The
Spragoos.
The Spragoos. If you're listening, or anybody with that last name if you're listening.
Oh, and South America needs to be listening. We still don't have any South America.
So if you know anybody named Spragway in South America, please send them our way.
Maybe somebody will get really annoyed by us talking about South America all the time, that they'll finally just be like, I'm going to South America to download your podcast just so you'll shut up.
Listen to it in South America, and then you guys can stop bugging us about it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we'll get Antarctica before we get South America at this point.
Probably.
The penguins are going to listen to us.
We're very popular with penguins, unlike some other people.
Well, we don't slap tariffs on them, so.
So.
Well, I guess that is all.
That is all. So, as always, remember that people are gross and don't get murdered, and we will talk to you next week.
And maybe don't go on sleepovers.
Yeah, it's never a good idea.
No. All right, see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.